Susanne. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Well, first, thank you to you that you still support us with legal issues, or talking about legal issues at a scientific conference. We are very happy to see like a full house in this session. So, for those of you who have been here the first day in this room on the EMA Cup workshop, you will recognize many of my slides. But yesterday, you may have get to know that we had a dispute on patent issues. So I spent the night with reading the rulings of the Federal Court and of the European High Court, and I tried to clarify what those courts said to patent issues. So I will skip very fast through the slides you already know. So as I'm supposed to give you here in 10 minutes an overview of what's going on from bench to bedside, that would fill more than a term at university to tell you all about the law which is effective through the regulation from bench to bedside for new therapies. As we are doing therapy research here, I will skip to the therapy research law. So whoever is doing basic research and who is not interested in developing the therapy, you can lean back and relax, because most of the law I'm not talking about is not affecting your daily work at the laboratory. For those of you who are developing therapy, you should listen very closely, because there are many, many pitfalls, many, many approvals you need to get your product, your future product into the market. You need at least 3 to 4 approvals to get the product to the market. So you need what I call here approval 1, at least 2 approvals. You need an approval to manufacture your product here in Germany by one of the German states. You need an approval to do the first in-man study by an authority, by the federal authority, and at least you need an approval to get your product to the market. So if you have only one of these approvals, you are not allowed to put your product to the market. And the question yesterday came again and again and again. What is if you have a market authorization approval? Can you bring your product to the market in the entire European Union? Yes, you can if you have a market authorization by the European Commission. But that does not guarantee you the money. So this is the 4th approval you need for reimbursement. And the problem in the European Union is that the market authorization for the product is not combined with the approval for the reimbursement. And even if you have a centralized market approval for the entire European Union, which covers up to 300 million people, you will have to negotiate in 28 member states the reimbursement issue. And you should take this into account when you start developing your therapy, because without the money coming in, you will not survive. And this, so what we are talking here is what you have seen this slide maybe 1 million times ago, but to remind you, this is what we are talking here, the so-called ATMP regulation. And whenever you develop a therapy, a product in the European Union, which is based on cells, gene therapy, you should look very, very closely to the provisions of the ATMP regulation. But be careful, the ATMP regulation, which is a European law, by the European lawmaker, only sets the regulation for the market authorization. This is not research, this is only market authorization. If you want to gain tissue to develop a product, this is not directly set in the ATMP regulation. We have another law which is called the Tissue Directive. But the Tissue Directive is something very typical European. It's a directive, not a regulation. That means if you want to know what's in the directive, you have to go to your member state and read the member state law, because the directives must be transferred to the national law in all 28 member states. So if you are interested in the provisions for gaining and processing tissue cells, you have to read the Tissue Directive in your certain member state. And the ATMP regulation, which sets the regulation for the market authorization, refers to the Tissue Directive. So it says, if you want to bring a product to the market, under the ATMP regulation. You must also meet the provisions of the tissue directive, and then you have to read your national law. If you are doing only basic research, you can gain tissues and cells in any way, as long as you ask the donor, and as long as the donor agrees. So, if you are developing adult stem cell therapies, you are the lucky guy, because there are only safety and quality issues. There are no other issues, no patent issues, no market authorization issues. You will get the market approval as long as your product is safe and you can prove the quality of the product. The same applies to infused pluripotent stem cells. The problems raised when it comes to embryonic stem cells. So, if you are a citizen of the European Union, you may have recognized that we do have problems with human embryonic stem cells within the European Union, from soft to hardcore problems. And especially here in Germany, we have severe problems with human embryonic stem cell lines when it comes to the question of how to gain them and how to work with them. Before I come to the patent issues, which I was told yesterday, which is a burning issue, to tell you what way you can get the patents from, I want to tell especially those guys of you who are traveling that you should be very careful if you work in the field of embryonic stem cell lines and if you're traveling. It's always amazing for me when I talk to physicians, especially in Germany. They still think, so maybe it's affecting you, they can travel the world and can do any stem cell research, especially any research on human embryonic stem cell lines in the world. They cannot. I said that on the first day in this EMA-CAT workshop. And you, as a foreigner, if you come to Germany, you cannot too. So you have to be very careful. In Germany, you are only allowed to do research on certain human embryonic stem cell lines, which you have to import from abroad. There's a special law which covers this, what we call the Stem Cell Act. And now listen very carefully. If you are a foreigner, not a German citizen, but you are paid by the German public sector, and you travel abroad, and maybe doing research in California or London, and you do something abroad which is permissible there, but not in Germany, and you come back with your German public-funded position, you then get into trouble. Because at the moment if you have an affiliation with the public sector in Germany, you are asked to respect German law also when you travel. So when you come back to Germany and you have derived human embryonic stem cell lines abroad by destroying a human embryo, and you come back, we catch you at the airport or at the port and send you to prison for up to 3 years if you have destroyed human embryo. The same applies to anybody of you if you do research in Germany. Maybe you are an American citizen from California or a UK citizen and you want to do research in London when you are back. So you call your colleagues from Germany, from your German lab, and tell them, hey, I will be back next week in London and I need fresh human embryonic stem cell lines. Please produce them for me. You know, today the NSA is listening any phone call, especially of our chancellor. So maybe the German Secret Service is doing as well. But I can tell you it would not work if it came to court case, because they are not allowed to listen, so they cannot use what they have heard. But to make it still clear, you are not allowed to call from Germany any country abroad to tell them to produce stem cell lines for you. If I get to know that, I can sue you and bring you up to prison for up to 2 years. So be very careful if you work with human embryonic stem cell lines in Germany, and especially if you have an affiliation to the German civil service. This is the thing here again. So coming now to patent issues. This raised a lot of paper within the last years. So you are the lucky guy as long as you do, if you want to have a patent on iPS or adult stem cells. The problem starts when it comes to human embryonic stem cell lines. To understand the European patent landscape, there are two different patent regimes in that what we call Europe. So we have the European Union patent law, which is not European Union patent, it's again a directive, the biopatent directive, which had to be transferred into the national patent law of the 28 member states. And then we have the European Patent Convention, and they are distinct. The European Patent Convention is not a body of the European Union. This is a state treaty. So if you have a look to the countries which are included by the European Patent Convention, so it's all the 28 member states of the European Union, but there are 10 more, so like Turkey. So you as an inventor, you are free to choose where to go to, which patent you want to use. And in both patent regimes, we had patent cases on human embryonic stem cells. So the first case was Walt Thompson. So Jamie Thompson wanted to have a patent on gaining stem cells by destructing the human embryo, and the European Patent Office said no, because this is against the European Patent Convention. And then the case which became even more famous is the Bristol case. And in the Bristol case, after the final ruling of the European High Court and the Federal Court of Germany, I tell the story how it worked, it is now up for me. I have a certain view on how we have to read the Federal High Court and the European High Court. And to make the thing clear, I still say, as I said yesterday and the day before, you will not get patents on any technique, including human embryonic stem cell lines. If you get one, you will be sued, either by me or by Greenpeace again. And I tell you the background. So this case, the Greenpeace patent case worked as follows. Oliver Bristol claimed a patent on a technique to derive something out of human embryonic stem cells he gained legally. He never claimed destructing an embryo. He just claimed a technique to produce something out of human embryonic stem cells. And then he was sued by Greenpeace, and he resued them, and then they came to the Federal High Court of Germany, and the Federal High Court of Germany recognized that this is a European law issue because it goes back to the European Biopatent Directive. So in this case, the national court has to ask the European High Court to help, to tell the national courts what is in the Biopatent Directive. So the Federal High Court of Germany asked the European High Court, could you please answer us some questions? And one of the questions was, what is a human embryo? And the other question was, can I get a patent on techniques where embryos are destroyed or not, if the destruction is not claimed? So then the European High Court answered as follows. Is that the human embryo is any totipotent entity, regardless how it came into the world. So sexual and asexual produce totipotent entities. So the classic of merging an egg with a sperm is an embryo, but also Dolly the sheep method would be an embryo. Second step, if you destroy such a thing and you have then stem cells, regardless when it was in the past, you cannot patent any technique using these stem cells. And the third question was on industrial and commercial use. So in the Federal High Court of Germany asked what is industrial, what is commercial use? And the European High Court said, well, this is intrinsic of the patent. The moment you get a patent, it has an industrial and or commercial use. Otherwise, it would not be a patent. So please the take-home message of this is at least the European High Court set the doctrine of what we call the fruits of a poisoned tree. And I will come to back to this in a minute. So in the case of Bristol, it was, well, sorry to tell you, Oliver, it was necessary to destroy the embryo. Now you are using these embryonic stem cell lines. And it was necessary to destroy an embryo, regardless when it was. You cannot have a patent on this. This is the doctrine of the fruits of the poison tree. So well, then some clever guy said, okay, how should we deal with human embryonic stem cells gained by not destroying the human embryo? Well, the Federal High Court of Germany said then, I read that yesterday evening again and again and again, and you should read it too. It said, Oliver, you have to get out of your patent that you claim your technique on stem cell lines which have been gained by destroying them. As long as you have this in, we cannot give you the patent. But if you do this out of the patent, it will be okay. The Federal High Court did not say you will certainly get a patent if you not destroy an embryo, because the Federal High Court was not asked what is commercial or industrial use. It would never ever answer this question, because this would be what we call in law an obiter dictum. And this is way too dangerous in this area. It must come to your mind. Imagine you not destroy an embryo, and you have the embryonic stem cell lines out of them. You're right, you have not destroyed the embryo. But what you are doing now is the commercial and industrial use of what you have get out. So you instrumentalize this embryo. You use the embryo commercially, industrially. And the Biopatent Directive of the European Union makes totally clear you get not a patent if you use a human embryo, and what a human embryo is, the European High Court told us, you will never get a patent the moment you use the human totipotent entirety commercially or industrially. And you have to read together with this the doctrine of the fruits of the poison tree. If this works with the destruction of embryos, it works also with the non-destruction. So if I cannot convince you with this, your patents would be worthless here in Germany, even if you get them. Because the technique as itself is not allowed in Germany, at least not in Germany. So your patent, even if you have one, you don't get one. This is one of the major problems in research. When researchers read law, you only read one law, but there are different laws. And you may remember that we have a law here in Germany, a super strict law, which we call Embryo Protection Act. And the German Embryo Protection Act makes totally clear you are not allowed to gain out anything of a human embryo, because this is what we call an illegal treatment of the human embryo. Please read Section 2 and Section 3 of the German Embryo Protection Act. Section 3 makes clear the only thing what you can do to an embryo, to a human embryo, is to produce it for infertility treatment. And the only way, the only exception you are allowed to take cells out is a small catalog for PGD treatment to get the cells. And this, the lawmakers last year made this clear. The only way you are allowed to take cells out is PGD.
But if you discard the cells,
then you have to discard them, but you are not allowed to use them.
inconsistent?
It is. I'm fully with you, Bernie. It's inconsistent, but we as lawyers, we just can't integrate it. So I see that emotionalness. I have to tell clients what it is like. And at the moment, I would not tell anybody to try to get a patent in this field, because you would fear another action, maybe by Greenpeace. They are just waiting for it. And even if you want to have the patent, as I told you, it's worthless here in Germany, because you cannot use this technique. And if you think this case is over, no, it just started again. Because if you have a look to the European Patent Office again, Oliver Plüssner has also another patent at the European Patent Office. The European Patent Office revoked Oliver Plüssner's patent, which was already the amended one after the European High Court. So if you see any chance to to get a patent in the European Union on a technique which does not destroy human embryos to do anything with human embryonic cells. I'm very happy to hear how you do that, and especially how you want to overcome the hurdle of commercial and industrial use of an embryo. Because if you declare the gaining of human embryonic stem cell lines out of an embryo as non-commercial, non-industrial, be careful. You declare the entire pharmaceutical industry as non-commercial and non-industrial. So this is my point, and maybe, I know you have a broad overview for all stem cell lines in the world. Maybe you can comment later on that, on how many stem cell lines are there or could be gained by non-destructing human embryos. So I'm happy to take your questions. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So other questions?
I'm just thinking about the non-commercial use. If you just take enough money to cover your own costs, is that non-commercial use? Patent costs, all these costs that have gained, is that non-commercial use?
But it would be industrial use. Because you produce by industrial matters material.
Small scale?
Well, you have to tell me when does industrial use start. So if the technique behind is standardized, why should that not be industrial? But I know you are more in the industrial field, and maybe you can tell us what is industrial.
I think you're a lawyer. I think that you have to tell me what industrial is.
So, in the Merck the Integra, where you can do research, so if you're a pharmaceutical company and you want to use stem cells to do toxicity screening, can you use human embryonic stem cell derived cells in Germany, for example?
Yes, you can. You can use human embryonic stem cell lines in Germany for doing research, as long as you have an authorization, a permission for it. And you have to ask the Regen Medicine Institute here in Germany to give you this permission. And then you are allowed to import special stem cell lines from Germany, and then you can do your research. Nobody's talking about restricting research. I'm just talking about patents. And patent law is not restricting research.
One last question.
I have a question. I'm very curious your opinion since a lot of movements developed always about our desires for research field. And recently there was a paper published in Nature about ideas that they can take back into the topic.
Oh my goodness, I fear that you will ask about that.
I'm just wondering, what is your opinion on how this potentially affects the law?
I do it very quick. So, as I'm looking in the field of induced pluripotent for a week very closely, this paper, it was like an alarm. So I walked around and asked, talking to all the reprogramming guys, so what do you think of this paper? And they all told me, cool down. Because they found nothing special. So they found like a totipotency marker, which you regularly find in these cells. But this one marker does not make a totipotent cell. So, but we are aware of it, that it will come.
If you would like to proceed with our last talk.